What's going on, guys? G2 here. Welcome back to the bench, and today we're going to be working on something that I have not seen on YouTube at all. So I just got back from a trip to Myrtle Beach, golfing trip, and one of my buddies has this pretty nice Odyssey Stroke Lab number 7 putter, and it broke. Look at here at this transition, we go from steel all the way to graphite, and there's a little bit of a washer there. So that's where the fault occurred. You can see it's loose. It's definitely cracked, but it's not cracked all the way off. So what we're going to do here is just a simple shaft extraction. You can use the shaft puller if you want. Just remember, this is graphite, so you can't heat this up and twist. You will totally shear off the graphite. So whenever you're pulling a graphite shaft, you want to make sure you heat and then you pull away. Pull in a straight line. Do not twist. One of the things here we want to work on too is there's this little ferrule at the transition. We want to try to save this at all possible. So we're just going to gently heat the bottom of the shaft here, not the top. I'm not going to use my shaft puller for this because I don't think we need to. And just going to apply some gentle heat. We're going to stay away from this washer, which is plastic. Alright, so we've heated that up. It's hot. Now we're just going to use a one motion here, and we're going to pull just straight out. Okay. So now we've got that out. We've got our shaft and we've got the head. Obviously, if you wanted to, you didn't care about the two material, the graphite and the steel, you could just go ahead, pull the shaft from the bottom and just put in a straight putter shaft. That would be the simplest. But the thing with the Stroke Lab design is it's weighted perfectly to give you consistent distance control in your putts. So we want to maintain that performance of the club itself. Here's our little washer, so we can just kind of gently slide that off. And now as we inspect the shaft, now we can see what was going on here. So the failure is right there. You guys can see that it has cracked, not all the way through, just enough. So what's interesting about this is just a regular graphite shaft. There's nothing fancy about this except maybe the weight, which we will also make sure we copy. But what they've done is they have tapered or cut off shaft at the end so that it would marry perfectly into the steel part where the head is. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to find ourselves a graphite shaft. Now, you can buy these shafts already done, the steel and the graphite together. They're close to $200. I'm pretty sure as long as we get a shaft with the same weight, we can mirror exactly what's going here with a lot less cost attributed to it. Now, the grip. I do want to try to save this grip. This is a Odyssey grip, most likely a Wind grip. So it is a two-piece, not going to be extremely easy to save, but we are going to try that next. Okay, so for the extraction, the saving of the grip, what we're going to use, we're going at this old school, so we're going to use a grip saver, and then we're going to use a ton of solvent when you do this. Do not go cheap on the solvent. What I like to do is I will use an old ashtray and just kind of put this up here so you can see. And I'll put that here, so one, the ashtray catches all the solvent, and it allows me to rotate the shaft easily as I'm doing this. Alright, so because this is really slippery, it's hard to get a grip on. It's easy when you have a club head on there because you can use that as kind of a hold point. I just clamped it in my shaft, and we're just going to gently twist, and we're good here. This should just come right off. And there we go. Other thing I like to do is I'll get a flashlight and I'll just look down in there. We do have some tape left over. Using my grip cleaning brush, this is a really long cleaning brush. We'll just kind of put that in there and work out that tape. It's all wet and grimy, so it should come off pretty easy, like we can see here. And that looks pretty good, and I'm happy with that. We can see here it is straight. We didn't lose any contour of the grip. It's not ripped. We can absolutely clean this grip off and use it again. Technology behind the Stroke Lab is that it was perfectly balanced. You had the lightweight shaft with a heavy steel bottom and head. I was reading a lot on the forums just to see how they created these shafts, and all of them said that there is a counterweight at the top of the shaft, and that's kind of why we wanted to extract that grip. And you can see it's right here. It's this little brass counterweight. Hopefully it's not epoxied in. It's not. And that is what we were looking for. This guy right here. So all the Stroke Labs should have this counterweight in there to kind of give you that better feel in the grip, and also to counterweight the heaviness of the head. So success. So to weigh the shaft, you'll just weigh it like any other shaft. I use just a vise shaft holder to keep it from moving around. So you want to make sure that when you're setting up your scale for weight, we're going to set it to grams. It's 46 grams, so we will tear that off. Yeah, we're right about 53 grams. So this shaft is 53 grams. And the length of this, let's measure this real quick, 27 1/4 inch. So that is our length. Now let's also measure the butt size here. Or 0.600, excuse me, 0.60. We're right at 3.7 at the taper. So we know that when it engages with the hosel, we have to have it at 3.7. And then here, we have to tip it down to, we'll have to hand do this a little bit because 320 is a little small, 335 is a little big. So we can do it a 335. And our tip is exactly 1 3/4 inches. Now we know what we need. So let's search for a shaft. All right, so with a little work, we were able to find a suitable replacement using the dimensions that we measured, right? We found something that will work. Now, the key with this, and the problem you may come into, is the butt end, because most shafts are tapered to 370 at some point, or 350, whatever it is, and then the taper gets extreme because we have to get to that 6.0 at the end, right? Butt is right at 6.60. So we used our weight just to make sure, and we are perfectly fitted in there. So all of the specs from the original have been duplicated. The weight of the shaft, the length of the shaft, the counterweight, and we're going to use the original grip. The one thing, if you're particular like I am, you want to pay attention to your graphics. Make sure you don't trim it too low, because you don't want to have something like halfway through your graphics or whatnot. So we've set it so that with the grip installed, all of our graphics will be visible. All right, so now we're going to get to the part where we're going to shave down this 1 3/4 inch to fit into our shaft here. So we have fitted the tip here, and I did that off screen because this was time consuming. I'll show you how I did it. So sanding down the tip was just basic, using I kind of have my thing here that I use to finish my ferrules. It allows me to rotate the tips evenly, and then I just set up my belt sander to take off a lot of the material. and, you know, just kind of ran the belt sander and smoothed this out as I went. I did little by little, so took a little bit off, went fit, took a little bit off, went fit. When I got it just to the point where it was snug, but it went in with a little pressure, I stopped. And then at that point, I came over here to my vise that I use for my gripping, and I just clamped this guy in here, and then just using some sandpaper, kind of just went over and went little by little around until I got it to fit perfectly. Here's where the challenge is going to be, and I'll tell you what I did, and I don't think it's going to quite work. Transition point. So we wanted to save, if you remember, this little ferrule, and it just doesn't fit right. I mean, it looks okay, but it's not as nice as I would want it to look if it was my putter. So to get that sharp edge here, I basically used a hand file, a square, and I would run it right against the wall and just rotate the shaft. Pretty snug joint. It's pretty good. Still not as good as I would want it. So I have a theory here. I got some of these heat shrink sleeves, and we're going to slide them over top. Once we assemble everything, we're going to slide them over top, install, glue everything together. Then once everything is glued, we're just going to slip that guy right over top, and it should shrink and create a nice smooth collar. Now, for those of you who've watched my other videos, you'll know that especially when you are doing shaft installation, sometimes the hosel tips are a little bit bigger than normal, and you'll get a little bit of that play. So what I use, it's very simple. This is self-adhesive drywall tape, and when I go to install this, I will just simply wrap this around like so with the epoxy and put that into the hosel, and it will hold everything, give it a nice snug fit, doesn't mess with any centering. It's just a really nice fix, especially if you find yourself installing any type of shaft that's a little bit looser than you would want. It's a great, easy fix. You don't need a lot. One wrap is usually more than enough. So let's glue this guy up. Now, it should go without saying, when I extracted the shaft, I did clear out the hosel, so it is all clean. I wiped it down with acetone. I've wiped the tip down here with acetone as well. So everything is nice and clean. Our sleeve that we're gonna do, let's make sure we get that on first. So we'll slide that on so it's there. Let's go ahead and we'll just epoxy the inside here. Remember, we're going down about a 1 inch and 3/4. We don't need to go all the way down into there, but we want to have at least something ready in there. Okay, so now we'll put some on the shaft itself. We'll just put it just like this and slide everything in together, and that fits really, really nice. Also like to use just a little bit of grip solvent. It's really good at cleaning up any of that residue that may be left over. So we'll square that up so it's all in line with the club, and then we'll allow that to set and cure, and we'll come back tomorrow, put our shrink tape on, put our grip on, and see how it feels. One last tip, when it comes to epoxying, don't clean up your epoxy. Leave it here, because this will give you a good indicator of when your epoxy is done and what kind of set that you had. If it's too flimsy, you can test it. If it's too hard and brittle, you'll be able to see it too, so you'll know if you got a good epoxy mix or not. All right, next morning we are all nice and tightened up here, set up really nice. So what we're going to do now is, again, we had that compression or heat shrink ferrules to kind of cover up that little seam there. So we're going to slide this up. We'll just apply a little heat. So we can see now that transition area. It's nice and clean. Before we put on our cleaned out grip, I'm going to put just a tester on here to see how it looks. I actually went ahead while this was drying and I kind of played around with the old shaft, and I was able to fix it, believe it or not. So if you want to see how I did that, it's in another video. I'll put it right up here. So we're just going to go ahead and install this old shaft, or this tester grip here with some compressed air. We can put on this tester grip. It's pretty good. So we're all set, and let's go see how she rolls. All right, so we have here a 6-foot putt to the cup. We're just really looking for feel, making sure there's no rattles, making sure the balance feels good. Other thing I forgot to add is we did have the butt weight, so we did put that in when we installed the grip. Feels pretty good. Don't feel any knocking or anything like that. It's nice and smooth. The weight feels amazing. And I would call that done. So if you have a stroke labs and you've had that problem, it's going to happen at some point, I guarantee you. Pretty easy way to fix it. And you can most likely do this yourself with minimal tools. It just takes a little work in the fitting process. So until next time, hit them straight. Can't miss with this.